Windows that don't close, even in the middle of winter. Leaking ceilings at risk of caving in, doors hanging off their hinges, mold, lead, and asbestos poisoning you and your family. Bedbugs, cockroaches, and termites joining you at your table for a game of euchre. These are all examples of what we call habitability issues. Is your rental unit safe to inhabit? Living in your home should not damage you and your body. Your landlord may own the property at which you live, but that does not mean they can just sit back and passively collect your rent while the property falls apart. Your landlord has a responsibility to keep the property maintained. I mean, that's one of the reasons they give to justify collecting rent at all. Unfortunately, Lansing has a bit of a slumlord problem. The tenants union has received countless calls and emails from Lansing residents whose landlords have just ignored their requests for repairs. People go weeks and months without a working refrigerator or dishwasher or stove. Leaks just don't get fixed. Bad wiring creates fire risks, as well as power drains that can cost tenants a few extra $100 a month in electricity bills. Tenants who can afford, on top of paying for rent and utilities, to fix the problem may do so. They might pay out of pocket to do the repairs themselves or hire someone to do the repairs. But it is not their responsibility. It is not your responsibility. It is the responsibility of the landlord to keep the property maintained. And luckily for tenants whose landlords have failed to meet those habitability requirements and do that basic maintenance, there are ways to fight back and get your landlord to finally do their damn job. There are three main types of repairs that landlords need to deal with. Emergencies are immediate issues that threaten the tenant's health and safety. Things like a gas leak or a flooding basement or major roof damage. They require action within 24 hours. Top priority shit. If you don't have heat during a polar vortex, that is an emergency. Major problems are big issues, but not immediately life-threatening. Things like a lack of hot water, a broken refrigerator, a bedbug infestation, that sort of thing. These issues need to be completed within about a week. Minor problems are repairs for things that are nuisances. They make life annoying. Things like a dripping faucet, broken lighting, peeling wallpaper, that sort of thing. These issues need to be fixed within about a month. Everything from now on is going to operate under the assumption that you have notified the landlord, given them a reasonable amount of time to respond, and they have chosen not to do so. Before we go any further, we have two pieces of advice that are going to be helpful in basically every situation you encounter and every tactic you try to take. First, document everything. Photos, videos, emails, texts. If there is no record of the problem never existed. Is there a leak in your ceiling? Take a video showing that. Is your door hanging off the hinges? Snap some pics and put that in a folder online, or even just send them to a friend or put it in a group chat. Make sure all communication you have with the landlord is in writing. Text, email, or physical letters, and then save that communication as if your life depends on it, because at some point down the line it might. Note the timeline at which events unfold. Like, when did you first notice the issue? Take photo and video evidence proving that. And jot notes of every time you communicate with the landlord and property manager. Like, maybe you submitted a maintenance request through an online portal. Make sure to save that confirmation email. And if you know your landlord personally, maybe you text them to ask them to make the repair. Again, try not to have these conversations in person or over the phone. Get it in writing so you can prove that you made the requests if you ever need to demonstrate it in court. And if you do have to have an in-person conversation with your landlord or property manager, make sure to write down a detailed description of the conversation to the best of your ability immediately after the fact, and include the date. The second piece of advice is to reach out to your neighbors, or the people who live in the same building, or just more specifically, people who rent from the same landlord. If you live in a single-family home and don't know whether the houses around you are owned by the same person or company, there's online tools you can use to help figure that out. But a great place to start is just by asking your neighbors, do you rent from this landlord? Even if you don't like your neighbors, even if they play their music too late at night and keep you awake, if they have the same landlord or property management company, there's a great chance they have the same frustrations as you do. Working with your neighbors in tandem to carry out the tactics we'll be describing in this video is likely to increase your chance of success. Okay, great. You've notified your landlord, and you've waited, and you've waited. Maybe you even ask again, and the problem still does not get fixed. What do? There are two main tactics you can use from here. An escrow account is a third-party account managed by a bank, a credit union, or some other housing authority. Basically, instead of giving your rent to your landlord, you put it in escrow. Because the money you deposit is managed by that third party, neither you nor your landlord have access to the money until the maintenance issue is resolved. Pretty cool, huh? To set this up, the first step is, of course, to notify your landlord that you have a problem with the unit. The more time and more records you have showing that they knew about the problem and did nothing, the better. Give them a reasonable amount of time to fix the problem, and after that reasonable time is up, notify your landlord that you intend to withhold rent due to unfixed maintenance issues by putting it in escrow. Of course, make sure to document this communication. The best way to document it is to send a letter to your landlord via certified mail with a return receipt requested, and keep a copy of the letter for your own records. You can contact the Postal Service to figure out how to do that. I didn't know until I made this video, actually. I had to be taught. That's the best way to prove in court that you gave the landlord reasonable notice. To summarize, you need 1. Proof that you notified the landlord and that the landlord knew about the problem and did nothing. 2. A reasonable amount of time has gone by. And 3. Proof that you notified the landlord that you intend to withhold rent in an escrow account until the problem is fixed. Then, instead of giving your monthly rent to your landlord, you instead put it in this escrow account managed by this third party. You have just as little access to the funds as your landlord does, so no one can accuse you of just not wanting to pay. You were ready to pay and willing to pay when the monthly rent came due. You are simply withholding rent until the maintenance issue gets resolved, and which the landlord is legally obligated to resolve. But the landlord also has not received the money and won't receive the money until the issue is fixed. That's called hitting them where it hurts. If the landlord makes the repairs, the funds get released. But if 2 months have passed and you've deposited 2 months of rent into the escrow account and the problem still does not get fixed, those funds can be released back to you. And that's your money now. The landlord is not entitled to it, because they did not do their job. They did not hold up their end of the agreement, so you do not need to pay them. This is one of many forms a rent strike can take. When you start the process of withholding rent, your landlord may retaliate against you by initiating eviction proceedings. We cover that process in our first video, which is linked in the description below. This is why documenting everything is so important. Additionally, if you have maintenance issues, chances are so do other folks in your building, or other folks who rent from the same landlord. Reach out to them and ask if they'd be willing to withhold rent with you at the same time. More tenants participating means more lost money for the landlord, which increases the pressure on the landlord and increases the likelihood that your landlord is going to actually fix the issues. Additionally, if your landlord does end up initiating eviction proceedings, more participating tenants means more documentation that y'all can use against the landlord in court. So great, you can wait a few months, but this is a slow process, and some maintenance issues are urgent. A lack of heat in winter, a vicious bedbug infestation that you can't just live with for months until your landlord decides to get off their ass and fix the problem. So, here is another option. Repair and deduct. You make the repairs yourself or hire someone to make the repairs for you, then deduct the cost of the repairs from your monthly rent. It sounds simple, and really it is, but there are some extra things you can do to save you trouble, increase the length of your paper trail, and allow you to prove you were right in court if your landlord is a fucking shithead who decides to take it that far. First, of course, make sure to request the repair from your landlord and give them a reasonable amount of time to fix the problem and get those records proving you did this. If the landlord does not respond, call local repair companies for 3 written estimates and go with the cheapest option. Most reputable repair companies will provide you written estimates for free. Or if it's a DIY job, shop around for parts and materials and compare the prices. Once you have the quotes or the prices, send them to your landlord or property manager along with a notice saying that if they do not fix the problem by a particular date, that the cost of the repair will be paid from rent withheld. And if the landlord doesn't do it by that date, then have the repairs done yourself, keep all of the receipts, note the dates of the repairs, and send copies of the receipt to the landlord or property manager along with the remainder of the rent. For more information on both these tactics, withholding rent in escrow and repairing and deducting, visit tinyurl.com/mi-tenant-rights. Before taking these sorts of actions, it's important to know the ways your landlord may retaliate against you. Many landlords have a general respect for the fact that their tenants have rights, but other landlords are scary and erratic and extremely entitled. So let's think. What are some of the ways your landlord might try to threaten or coerce you if you try to withhold rent? The website Michigan Legal Help offers a useful list of things your landlord is not allowed to do to you. In addition, this list doubles as a guide to the things your landlord might do to you if your landlord is a major shithead who does not respect your rights as a tenant. Your landlord is not allowed, but may try, to use force or threaten to use force to make you leave or keep you out of your home. They might try to enter your home without your permission when it's not an emergency. They may remove, withhold, or destroy your property. They might change, alter, or add locks or security devices to the home without your permission. They may board up the premises to prevent entry or make it more difficult. They could cause interruption or shut off of essential services such as water, electricity, or gas, and they might cause loud noises, bad odors, and other nuisances. All of these are possible ways a real shitty landlord may try to retaliate against you for simply enforcing your legal rights. As a tenants union, we've had many tenants come to us and describe these sorts of retaliations. It's not out of the realm of possibility. If you have experienced any of these things, please reach out to the tenants union as well as the other folks in your building or who rent from the same landlord. And of course, your landlord may give you a notice to quit and threaten you with an eviction case. If you find yourself in this situation, please watch our previous video on the eviction process and reach out to the tenants union for support. You can call the eviction defense hotline at 517-234-8613. Also, as an addendum to that eviction video, something I should have mentioned then, there are cases where it may be beneficial for you to leave your home without being asked to by the court, to self-evict, as they say, when your landlord gives you that notice to quit. The reason is that a court-ordered eviction, but not a self-eviction, will impact your credit score. I know, it sucks. It's another way that landlords have this vast and unreciprocated control over their tenants' lives. They can instill that fear in you, and judges often just default side with landlords even when the landlord is in the legal wrong. Having an eviction on your credit score can fuck you up for years. Now, I'm not saying that to dissuade you or to prevent you from fighting back. I just want to make sure that you know all the risks. You know your life better than I do. You know the types of risks you are or are not willing to take. I just want to make sure you have all the information possible so you can make the most informed decision for yourself. And there's one last thing y'all should know, because for some of you, understanding this might help make your landlord's behavior make more sense. So sometimes landlords will intentionally and strategically decline to make repairs to the building because it is their goal to create living conditions so disgusting and uninhabitable that the tenant is driven out. Why would they do this? Well, this is a tactic used by certain slumlords and gentrifiers who want to make a quick buck by flipping the building and selling it at a higher price, or renting it out to wealthier tenants. In order to do that, they need to get rid of the existing tenants. And if the existing tenants are still on a lease, and if there's no legal reason to evict them, these particularly shitty landlords will instead just decline to make repairs and let the property fall apart until the tenant leaves of their own free will. The reason I bring this up is because if you're withholding rent and your landlord doesn't seem to care or seems to be trying to wait it out and just isn't making repairs even as you go month after month after month of rent withholding, it's possible that your landlord made a mental calculation that the money they lose from you withholding rent is less than the amount of money they stand to gain if they're able to force you out and then sell the building or rent it out to wealthier tenants. It's pretty fucked up, if you ask me.